When it comes to the animated films of 2024, there have been many films this year that I was both excited to review or watch, and also ones I was dreading. For me, it's like being on Press Your Luck. Sometimes I get lucky and land on the big bucks, and other times, well, big bucks, no whammies, no whammies, no whammies, no whammies, stop! Oh!
Hello, do you know me?
There have been plenty of whammies this year I wasn't looking forward to, but if there was one film that I was really dreading to watch the most, it was Spellbound, the latest animated film from Skydance Animation, the studio that hired John Lasseter after he was forced out of Disney and Pixar when it was revealed he was a sexual predator. Boy, do I not want to review this. And it's not just the fact that it's another animated film produced by Lasseter, who shouldn't even be working in this industry anymore, although that really doesn't help. It's mainly the fact that this film looked really unimpressive. Like, wow. It just seemed dull and uncreative. And when I saw that first trailer, which included Lasseter still having an ego trip by showcasing every Pixar film he directed, as well as Toy Story 3, which he did not direct, I really just had a facepalm. I mean, seriously, this trailer also listed Cars 2 as one of the Pixar films. You know, the film that's regarded as Pixar's very worst film to date. What made them think people would want to see this based on that? So yeah, this looked really lame. And not helping matters is that Skydance has not been really doing well since that hiring. Big shock, I know. They debuted on the animation scene in 2022 with their first feature film, Luck, and that film was awful. It was one of the most uncreative and chaotically made animated films I've ever seen that was so desperately trying to be a Pixar film and failing quite miserably at it. Its animation was really unimpressive, the story was mostly exposition, the characters were flat and one-dimensional, and it had some of the worst world building I had ever seen in a film. Like, I cannot explain how this world works for the life of me. It had so many pieces to it and was so chaotically put together that it felt like I had to read a detailed instruction manual to understand it. It was basically trying so desperately to rip off Inside Out, even down to having the same exact message. Seriously, the theme of that we need to have bad luck in our lives just as much as good luck is not any different than we need to have sadness in our lives just as much as joy. Except it's not nearly as meaningful. If anything, I think this film has only grown worse, especially in the wake of Inside Out having a just as amazing sequel this year. But yeah, Luck was terrible. And most people wisely ignored it because it didn't do that well at all. And last year, it seemed like Skydance's distribution company, Apple, also got fed up with the studio, both as they thought that none of their upcoming films looked good, and the fact that they were costing ridiculous amounts of money. So, last October, they bailed from the studio, forcing Skydance Animation to go with Netflix, which I'm honestly baffled how Netflix picked them up. Netflix didn't want promising projects by people like Sergio Pablos and Jorge Gutierrez, and also decided to lay off tons of animation workers who seemed like more than good people. And yet, they're more than happy partnering with a studio with a disgraced leader that's on shaky ground and whose first feature film was a dud. Yeah, that tracks. But by all accounts, I get the impression that this deal with Netflix was more of a last resort than an actual partnership. According to The Hollywood Reporter, no other film distributor wanted to work with Skydance, most likely for the same reasons Apple ditched them, as well as, you know, the baggage. I think they went to Netflix because Netflix will literally take anything. Well, except Harold and the Purple Crayon, but I digress. So that's what leads us here. Spellbound. An animated musical about a princess whose parents are turned into monsters and has to change them back. Yippee. Gee, I haven't seen this kind of premise before. Totally original. But even with my expectations being rock bottom, I'm always the kind of person that wants to give everything a chance, even if this did look really bad. And I told myself I needed to be a little bit more kinder to the studio and try to separate the baggage. So I went in with an open mind. And how'd it turn out? Bad. Yeah, it turned out exactly how I expected to. If luck didn't convince you that Skydance hiring Lasseter was a massive mistake, Spellbound surely will. This is a film that is so unoriginal, so thin, and so desperate that I am honestly not surprised that Apple bailed from this. It's yet another unimpressive animated film from Skydance, and quite frankly, one of the dullest animated films I've seen all year. This was really rough to get through. In the kingdom of Lumbria, the princess Elian, played by Rachel Zegler, is in a dilemma as her parents, the king and queen, played by Javier Bardem and Nicole Kidman, have been turned into monsters and have stayed that way for a year. Elian, as well as the ministers Bolinar and Nazara Prone, played by John Lithgow and Jennifer Lewis, have been keeping it a secret from the kingdom for a full year and have sought the help of the sun and the moon oracles, Ludo and Sunny, played by Nathan Lane and Titus Burgess. After seeing the parents, they tell Elian that in order to break the curse, her parents must go to the Light of Lake right before the kingdom realizes the situation. And so, Elian and her parents set off on a quest through the dark forest of eternal darkness to... the dark forest of eternal darkness. Are you freaking kidding me? Was that name garnered from the department of the redundancy department? That is so lame. Honestly, I don't think I've heard a location name in an animated film that bad since Heck Mountain. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, like I was saying, Elian goes into the forest in order to break the curse. Based on the premise I just read, you might be thinking, well, it's not the worst thing ever, apart from that lame forest name. I mean, sure, it's not the most creative premise out there, but it can't be that bad, right? Yeah, it is. And I can tell you the biggest problem right now. The story feels thinner than a pencil. This is one of the most boring animated films I've seen all year, and it's a film where barely anything happens. It feels like a premise that started off as a picture book and then somehow got stretched into a film, and it barely works. Most of the film consists of scenes that amount to nothing and are just there to pad the runtime to 100 minutes. Like, if you need to know how badly put together this premise is, the first act of the film literally accomplishes nothing and is just full of exposition. The film opens up with the parents already turned into monsters after they venture into this dark forest, though it's never explained why they go into the dark forest to begin with. And basically, they've been that way for the whole year, and the main character has been keeping it a secret, so the way that she keeps it a secret is by using cardboard cutouts of the king and queen, and also just making excuses for not letting people into the castle, which... I'm sorry, there's no way a kingdom would buy this for an entire year. I know it's a fairy tale, but still, fairy tales need to have logic. And yeah, Frozen did something similar, but the character who has the secret was the princess and was still a child, so it made sense for that to be locked up, because, you know, children deserve to grow up away from the spotlight and not be scrutinized. And plus, the kingdom is not going to feel suspicious of a princess being kept hidden. Not a king and queen. I would have bought this if this had happened only a couple of months ago, but one full freaking year? No way. Anyway, I digress. After this entire exposition dump, we're given more exposition as a character literally comes in and all he does is just literally spout nothing but exposition. He just comes in and he's like, as you know, the oracles live in this dark forest, and I have sent my bird into this forest, and so on and so on and so on, and this is all told and not shown. I cannot believe I have to explain this, but you never, ever, ever have a character state exposition with the phrase, as you know. It's some of the laziest storytelling you can muster in a film, cause nobody talks like this. I mean, if a character in a film already knows the information you're telling, then why are you explaining it to them again? Like, was there really no other better way to convey this information? Ugh. After that, the oracles show up, and you'd think Elian learns right away from them what to do, but no, the monsters chase them away, and to further pad out the film, and then they have to go find them in the forest, and then learn the information about breaking the spell. Like, I am not kidding when I say this film doesn't really have much meat to it. Most of the film is just padding in order to pan the runtime out. Even the set pieces don't really accomplish anything. They're just big bags of nothing, and it just left me feeling so incredibly bored. Like, there's a scene where the characters just stare at the stars and they do nothing. It's so boring. Plus, it also doesn't help that, much like Skydance's previous film, Luck, this film once again rips off so many Disney animation and Pixar films, and it also once again fails miserably. A princess whose parents are turned into monsters and has to have a curse be unbroken? Well, that was done by Brave. The film's opening and ending, involving Elian breaking the fourth wall, explaining her situation involving her parents? That was taken from Turning Red. The basic quest to figure out how to undo a curse that's dooming a kingdom? Again, that was taken from Frozen. Even the third act, which I won't spoil, is dead similar to a scene in Soul. This film is just a massive ripoff of better films. There's nothing that's original in here whatsoever. And look, this is not me trying to defend or prop up Disney and Pixar as flawless companies, because they're not. There are plenty of valid critiques you can say about them. I'm just saying there's a difference between taking inspiration from other films and blatantly ripping them off. For example, The Wild Robot is a film that takes inspiration from Disney animation. There's things in it that remind me of Disney, but it feels unique enough to be its own thing. This film, though, feels like it's ripping off Disney. It doesn't feel like it's putting its own spin on it or doing something unique. It's just copying elements that worked well in those films. It's basically like those horrible Disney knockoffs we got in the 90s, like Quest for Camelot, The Swan Princess, and Thumbelina. It doesn't feel special in the slightest. On the one hand, though, I will give this film this. I do like the themes of the film. I think they're very special and sweet, and I know it's going to mean a lot to a lot of kids out there that are going to grow up. But, God, I just wish it was in a better movie. Now, is this film any funny? Nope. Not at all. All the jokes in the film fall flat, and not a single one gets a laugh. Not one. Like, there were some times it tries to be modern and hip.
I'm giving you 5 stars.
Get it? Because it's like an Uber driver? How hilarious. How highly, highly humorous. And also, much like Luck, there's plenty of toilet humor, including one moment where the king as the monster actually says, "I have to release the liquid inside of me." This film was written by 3 people, for the record. 2 of them wrote the Mulan remake, the other one wrote episodes of Lab Rats. Explains a lot, doesn't it? So yeah, the story is bad, and unfortunately the animation isn't much better. This has to be one of the dullest looking fairy tale films I've ever seen. I'm not entirely sure what the film is trying to go for visually. The thing with fairy tale and fantasy films is that when it comes to their look, they pull from different international cultures. Like, Beauty and the Beast was French, Snow White was German, and Frozen was Scandinavian. But this? I don't even know what kind of culture this was going for. European? Asian? South American? I don't even know. It just looks like a generic fantasy world. Not just that, the animation itself is also so unimpressive. The characters move around awkwardly, some of the rendering looks really rough, like the look of the darkness, which is this big spiral, and it's so bad. I mean, look at this. Just look at this. How was this approved? Honestly, this whole movie looks like a mobile game ad. Like, you put these characters in a game like Gardenscapes, and I think they'd fit right in. This film just doesn't look special at all. Oh, and speaking of the characters, all of them do not work. I feel so bad for Rachel Zegler because she is really trying and clearly giving it her all in this performance, but Princess Elian is a terrible protagonist. This character is so boring and uninteresting and has nothing about her that stands out whatsoever. Like, there's nothing in her that separates her from a random Disney princess because I don't know what she's like. She's just sweet, slightly clumsy, and a little bit awkward and independent, and that's it. The film doesn't give her any personality or anything interesting to do and comes across like a blank slate. Like, I don't even know what she does with her free time apart from just fly around on this random creature. She just comes across as a poor man's Anna. And it really frustrates me, because we've gotten a lot of strong animated heroines this decade, and yet she has to be one of the weakest I've ever seen. Her parents aren't much better, as I know less about them, and I know nothing on what they were like before they got turned into monsters until a brief scene at the ending. Again, it just goes to show you how badly told this film is. There's no sense of what it was like before apart from a couple of visual flashbacks. And that's just not enough. I need to know more about these characters in order for me to care about them. And it also doesn't help that Javier Bardem is really bad as the king. Nicole Kidman is fine. It's not a great performance, but she's doing her best. But I have no idea what Bardem was doing here. He sounded like he was really phoning it in. As far as the other characters go, there's nothing to them either. The two counselors don't do much, except for John Lithgow's character, who ends up body swapping with Elian's pet Fink, and all he do is just complain throughout most of the film. And the two oracles are just there for exposition and don't really serve much purpose apart from being very unfunny. Just made me wish I was watching The Genie in Aladdin. Again, I really cannot stress enough how badly written this film and these characters are. They have to be some of the most underdeveloped and one-dimensional characters I've seen in an animated film all year. One other thing I also forgot to mention is that this film is a musical. The songs were written by Alan Menken and his lyricist Glenn Slater, and while Menken is a legend and has written some of the best songs ever, not just for animation, but for film itself, I'm sad to say that this is not his best work. Most of the songs in the film are very forgettable and didn't leave any impression on me. Well, except for two. The first was the ballad The Way It Was Before, and it's okay. It's the one song in the film I thought was actually kind of nice, but it does feel like it's a retread of his previous work. Like, it sounds like he just pulled elements from Beauty and the Beast, A Whole New World, Colors of the Wind, and I See the Light. It doesn't hold a candle to those songs, but it's not a horrible one. I cannot say the same for I Can Get Used to This. That's a song Lithgow's character sings, and it's so bad. It is really annoying, it's pretty pointless to the story, and Lithgow's singing voice is not great. I mean, it's better than other Menken duds, like the Scuttlebutt. Remember the swamp? Remember my song in the swamp when I was like... But that's not saying much. And yeah, that's all I got for this film. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not surprised Apple dumped this film, because I really did not like Spellbound at all. Well, it does have a really good message, Rachel Zegler tries her best, and one of the songs is okay, the story is padded, not funny, and really unoriginal, the animation is awkward and looks like a mobile game ad, and the characters are underdeveloped and one-dimensional, and not to mention the songs range from unimpressive to bad. This is yet another animated dud from Skydance Animation, and it is not worth your time whatsoever. There are better films you can watch instead of this, including new musicals, like Wicked. This just has nothing going for it that you can't get anywhere else. If anything, all it continues to prove is that John Lasseter has completely lost his touch and shouldn't be running this studio or working in animation anymore. So to wrap things up, I'm giving Spellbound a 3. I mean, probably the fairest grade I can muster. We've been really getting some exciting animated films this decade that have really reinvigorated the medium, but the two films from Skydance are not among them. I hope soon they can get rid of Lasseter and turn things around, because I don't like seeing animation studios fail, but it's looking pretty grim if they're going to keep ripping off Disney Animation and Pixar and making films like this. Because as far as I'm concerned, this film has no magic to spare whatsoever.
Chew away, sire.
Dad, put him down.
This